Hey everyone, welcome to the Capital City Bourbon Show. This is your host Luke, and I'm here with my co-hosts Alex and John. We're thrilled to be here with you all today, so grab yourself a glass of whiskey and come join us on the porch. Hey everyone, welcome back to the porch. It is a dark and stormy day here in Florida's capital city, but fortunately for us, the porch is covered and we have plenty of great whiskey out here to drink. John, you ready to do some drinking with me?
I am indeed. I'm looking forward to some Smoke Wagon.
Take that cigar out of your mouth. What are you doing? You know better than that. So once again, my esteemed co-host ruins my intro and spoils what I get to have.
I'm sorry.
Introducing our special guest on the porch today. We have someone here who's brought some great whiskey for us, and we have so many questions for him because he is just producing such a phenomenal product, and it's a product that everyone is searching for because it is so worth it, and we just have a lot to talk about. So we're thrilled to welcome our special guest all the way from Las Vegas, Nevada, Aaron Chepenik. Aaron, thanks so much for joining us.
My pleasure. I have a cloud or two here, so I can almost relate to your stormy weather. It's not perfectly bluebird skies, so that's about all we get around here.
A little bit of rain wouldn't bother you, would it?
No, we need it, man. We got another historic drought going on.
Well, I think, Aaron, you are our first guest that actually comes from a climate warmer than us, which doesn't ever seem to happen.
Only in the summertime. I think you have us beat in the winter. I'm not sure. No, it gets cold here in the winter. Now I can't remember. Well, what part of Florida are you in?
We're in Tallahassee.
Okay.
So yeah, it never gets cold in Tallahassee, it seems like.
No.
We just go from 100 to 90 and maybe 80 in the winter and then back up to 100.
Yeah, my family's from Jacksonville.
Oh, no kidding.
Yeah.
I spent a lot of time in Jax. I love it over there. So you bring up an interesting point to start off with, talking about your family and your background. So Aaron, you started this amazing company, Nevada H&C Distilling, and you're making these amazing products, but
well, thank you.
How did you get started in the whiskey business? How did this all come to be?
Oh man, it is a long. So my business partner Jonathan and I, we owned two bars together, and this was a long time ago. When you look at when we formed the company, it was 2010. So this had to be 2009. Right before the real estate collapse. It was the height of nobody was drinking bourbon back then. It was all vodka, and the vodka prices were ridiculous. And we were like, we should do a U.S. vodka, make it premium, but because it's made in the U.S. and it's made with corn, it'll be cheap, and we'll silver filter it like the premium Russian vodka. And I know nobody really wants to hear about the vodka, so I'll make that aspect of the story short. But that's where it all began. Just Jonathan and I drunk in the bar, totally bullshitting about what we should do. And, even he was talking about it not too long ago, when did it become a reality? And I can't really remember what happened, but just something went from us being yeah, we should do this, to me with the personality I have, just saying, yeah, we should do this. We're going to do this. And just diving in and tracking down a silver filtration system from Russia through India, and go right into space. At that time, I became a member of ADI, American Distillers Institute, and they gave me some advice, and then they recommended that I hire Dave Pickerell at the time, and that's what he was doing for craft guys. He was working as a consultant, and so. We went down the road with him, and he was like, you should do bourbon. And everyone was like, you should do bourbon. And I had just started drinking bourbon. I had made the transition from vodka to bourbon vodka, I was mainly drinking not because I was like, yum, delicious. It was like, man, I was so wild and manic in those days. When I first got in the bar business, it was 2003, and I was just my everything was like a struggle. Like there were still struggles ahead of me, but I just felt like everything leading up to that, I had made so many sacrifices. While everybody else was having fun, I was always working. I was always working the hardest, and then as soon as the bars were open and I bought a house, I was like, I think I can have fun now. And I just had all this crazy energy. And I was drinking as much as I could get my hands on and staying out all night and everything. And I had some good years. There was years of that. And then, so for the bottle, I designed that bottle, the Smoke Wagon bottle, the custom ones for the Silver Dollar vodka. And I wanted to so we actually got permission from the United States Treasury to trademark doing the replica of the Morgan Silver Dollar because it was public domain. And I was told I couldn't do that. Well, there you go. They told me I couldn't do it. So I did it. And so I had to do a 3D engineer the bottle myself and show them that if it was sunk deep to a certain point in the glass, and I had these bumpers on the top and bottom of where the labels went, that it wouldn't be no metal. It was impossible for metal to touch metal when going through the assembly line, and that was the concern. And so before I did that bottle, so even the Smoke Wagon bottles and the Silver Dollar bottles are unique to this day, where you'll never find another round bottle that has a recess in the front, because other companies owned by me and has an idea. And when somebody says, hey, you can't do that, I'll say, I'm going to learn this fucking 3D design program myself and build this bottle myself and figure it out, because I want it this way and there has to be a way. And so I slowed down. I was drinking bourbon. I loved bourbon. The one question I get asked a lot is what do I drink besides Smoke Wagon? Really nothing anymore. I just don't have the time. It's but I was drinking Four Roses, and I really liked the Michter's Rye back when I was 3 years old. Young ryes are amazing. It's like what people don't realize is rye ages very fast. And when you get an old rye, all the rye is aged out and there's not a lot left. It's not like corn. And so Dave Pickrell's, you should do a bourbon. Everybody said you should do a bourbon. I was like, well, I'm drinking bourbon. Makes sense. I should do a bourbon. And I said, but, I'm very intimidated by the process. Like vodka is, hey, let's just get it. So I like, when I drank vodka, I like vodka. It was neutral, no burn, tasted like water, and like bourbon. So he said, don't worry about it. You just buy stuff to get started. That's what everyone does. And so this was in 2012, and all the distilleries had closed their doors on craft guys because in 2012, 250 craft distilleries, I think, opened up. Now, whether or not I still fall under the craft category, since, we contract distill, I'm a, non-distilling supplier. The volume we're doing and all that stuff, whether or not I'm considered craft is up to the consumer. But so the only people doing it were, MGP had owned the Seagram's plant for about 9 months in December in 2012. And the head of sales at MGP used to be the head of Maker's Mark, and he was one of the guys that fired Dave Pickerell from Maker's Mark. And so he wouldn't deal with Dave. So we had to fly out there and meet with those guys, and spent 2 to 3 days out touring the facility and everything. And let me know if you have any follow-up questions. I told you,
Oh, I will. Don't worry.
You rock on.
All right. So that is when everything changed for me, right? Because here I am, even being a retailer, coming from the bar business. I thought I had insight into the industry. I had zero insight into the industry. I knew nothing. Everything, it's like you see these pictures and you're like, oh yeah, like even distilling. Like back then, if you told me that I would end up doing what I'm doing now, it would have been like, there's no way. I'm going to distill myself and I'm going to figure it out. And it's the art and it's like, no, it's chemistry. And the guys who are really good at it are all chemists, and everything's different now. Everybody, it's all computerized. Nobody's like going out and feeling grain to see if it has the same humidity as last time. It's all done with machinery. Nobody's like sniffing and sipping on distillate to see if the white dog coming out's good. They're watching computer screens. They're watching computer screens that have the chemical composition of the distillate, and that way they know that A, you're not going to go blind or die by drinking it, and B, it's consistent as the chemical composition of the previous distillate, and that's what they're doing. That's their job, and it's a hard job, but that. I'm coming from my 3,900 square foot dinky little facility that I, was like, this would only work if we were like, our whole business model was, hey, we're going to have a bar and it's going to be like a little fun hobby, It's like, and that was never the goal. The whole reason I focused on the packaging and everything was I wanted, to be national one day. And yeah, so just going there, I was like, well, how the fuck do you scale to this? It's like 20 acres. They got the still that runs on 3 power sources. I remember I came out of the control room and I was standing on like this balcony, like for these stairs, metal stairs. And Jonathan, my business partner, came out. He's like, "What's going on?" I was like, looking out over the the row of trucks lined up waiting to dump corn, and like all the movement and all the warehouses, and that's, we were told about how in the 30s when Seagram's chose that location, it was on the other side of the Ohio River because that's the way the wind blew, and they would get all the moisture, all the mist every morning. And it was on top of an aquifer. And so when they built the rack houses, they built them out of double wall masonry. And if you look at the Seagram's built ones, there's no windows except in the stairwells. And they have sub basements with dirt floors. And that's all so that the dirt's always wet. It's all about humidity, humidity, humidity. Everything was engineered by Seagram's to seal in humidity. It's like, I'm coming from Las Vegas where it's 5% humidity. And, when we started the conversations, it was like, oh, wow, it'd be interesting to see how things age in Las Vegas because it gets hot in the summer, but you do have cold, we have cold winters. It's like, yeah, I know how it's going to be. It's all going to evaporate. We're going to make balsamic bourbon, It's like, it's like Tuscany, and let's stick the barrels here and everything will evaporate. We'll be left with brown sludge. And so, yeah, I was just sitting out there and I told Jonathan, I was like, man, it's like, I was like, how do you scale to this? And everything everyone told me was a lie. It's just
really,
yeah. Because I mean, the romance of it all and all those things, and then it didn't matter because the Nevada state law changed on us, and we couldn't distill if we wanted to. There's no such thing as a distiller's permit here. You either have to operate as a craft distiller, a rectifier, or now there's the estate distiller's license where if you own the farm and are distilling on the farm, you can do 100,000 cases instead of 10,000 cases like a normal craft distillers, or maybe it's 100,000 proof gallons. I can't remember. But I mean, look, we're in 11 markets and we're going to exceed that in only 11 states. So it was a crazy journey. And I actually just did a video on these tanks again today for my personal Instagram. But yeah, so that was like 2009 to 2012, and finally ending up at MGP, where me, an arrogant sort of where I was like, I'm going to distill everything myself, and I'm going to figure it out. To going to no, we'll pay these guys to distill for us. I think they'll be better. They have I think these guys with chemistry degrees are going to be better with this equipment than I will be in our little dinky space.
Yeah.
Being able to fill one barrel a day.
Did you visit any other distillers?
No, at the time, no one. I don't think Bardstown was really doing contract distilling yet, and nobody else was willing to meet. Everyone had closed their doors. They saw craft brands as a collective, as competition. And so like Kevin Hill was always like a trusted source for sourcing. And they were like, nope, we're not doing it anymore. And I think Four Roses was under contract with Diageo at that time for Bullet. So they weren't doing anything with anybody else anymore. And that's yeah.
It sounds like you took a similar path to David Perkins out there at High West. He tells a similar story. Of course, Dave Perkins was a chemist.
Right. Oh, okay.
A little bit of difference. And he
Right.
was taking a bourbon tour once and kind of said, well, I can do this. So he kind of had that same cockiness that you had. But the difference is he had a chemical degree, and lo and behold, there's High West. I guess he sold it for $295-300 million, so it wasn't a bad crap sheet.
Yeah, I can't remember what they sold it for, but yeah, it's and then so everything just sort of happened. Or the original plan was to take those 5-year Seagram's barrels that we bought 200 of and dump them into these tanks we bought and installed in our place back in Las Vegas. And
so you brought it out there to age it?
No, it was still an MGP.
Okay.
And so now it's 2015. The tanks still aren't approved by the city. And then Donald Snyder, who was now working as our consultant, he was the old warehouse manager at MGP, and he left to start a consulting business. And he said, hey, just so you guys know, you're in sort of a unique position because MGP won't deal with anybody individually anymore. Everyone has to go through Ultra Pure. And the other thing that's going on is no one can get oak. There's no new barrels for craft distillers because now they're suffering from the housing market crash, and nobody's logging to build houses. So nobody's logging to get oak because nobody's out there looking for oak. They're just out there looking for pine on the East Coast. And if they come across oak, they set it aside, And he said, you should see if MGP will contract distill for you because it's very easy for them since you left because we never pulled our barrels. All our barrels are still in Indiana. So we have a contract with them for aging every month. And so I called and said, hey, can we contract distill 600 barrels with you guys? And they said yes. And so then we started contract distilling with them. And then the next year, 2016, we still didn't have approval on these tanks. And all of a sudden I was like, well, shit, it's been so long. The barrels that we bought that were 9 months old that LDI laid down right before they sold the plant to MGP are going to be 4 years old in the fall. And so this was the summer of 2015, actually. And we were told by our distributor that we were going to get picked up, but nothing ever happened. And the original plan was to make small batch 8-year because the 5-year barrels are 8-year barrels now. And then blend the 4-year in January. So that, let's say this is August. So in January, we blend in the 4-year to try to create a flavor profile equal to a 5-year because we really liked all the rye spice of the 5-year. And January rolls around and I pull the 4-year barrels. We still haven't been picked up by the distributor and the tanks still aren't approved. not that we're going to try and do it anymore because it would be this big expense. And so that is why I started exploring vintage blends with doing what the industry does, which is to step something down. So like a lot of times people, they have, I think it's one of the reasons a no age statement bottle sort of gets a bad rap is because a lot of times they'll put old juice in it, win awards, and then over time step it down and make it 4 years in a day. And because that was the advice I got. They were like, release it as an 8-year and then step it down and then have another product that has an age statement where you're using those 8-9-year-old barrels. And this is your 5-year product. In hindsight, I mean, now that I've been dealing with just 5-year, I mean, it would have been too expensive. You know, our straight is 4 and 5-year, and it's like a, you know, really affordable. The small batch would have always been in the $50-something price range. But so I tried doing that and it was terrible. I thought it was horrible and I kept messing around with it. And then finally I got a blend where I was like, wait a second here. I like this better. I like this better than the 8-year and I like it better than the 5-year that we tried. And it tastes like something completely different. It doesn't taste and the advice was, oh, don't do that. You put you've got these 200 barrels of 8-year, release those as an 8 and 9-year with an age statement, and then take your 4-year in a day and did it. I was like, well, then really what is the point? Because then we really are just like, just taking MGP and putting it in a bottle. It's like, we're not doing anything. Yeah. We can't, we had gotten the word from the state at this point that we couldn't distill ourselves. So we were never going to have our own distillate. And then and I was just like, well, this tastes better than anything I've had, in my opinion. All you can do is make something for yourself and get it out there and hope other people are liking it. You know, if you're trying to guess what the consumer is going to like, you know, I mean, maybe if you're a big company, you got a shitload of marketing and you can make them think they like it, whether or not they do or not, you know, that's one thing. Through marketing and advertising, but just to be out there, you know, it's like this. I was like, this tastes different. I like this better than anything I've had, and I think I'm adding something to the marketplace that doesn't exist. And I submitted that to San Francisco World Spirits Competition, and we won a gold. And then we finally got picked up by our distributor, like right after that.
They finally started paying attention. All it took was that gold medal.
All it took was that gold medal.
Well, so, you know, we're talking about all this whiskey, and I know people are probably thinking John and I fell asleep here, but truth be told, we've just been drinking the entire time because.
I'm sorry. I'm pretty.
No, it's we love it. It's just, it's bad for me because I've been drinking through a glass of the straight whiskey, straight bourbon. I've already tapped into the small batch now, which is absolutely one of my favorites. And
the small batch, man. I'll tell you, the small batch, when I was doing tastings and events and everything, the small batch was always the crowd favorite. And straight when it came out, you know, because like straight, people who don't like bourbon like small batch and straight because they have no oak. Oak is buried. There's no oak in the straight because it's only 4 and 5-year. But it's blended so that it has no youth, you know, it's nice and fruity, but there's no grain. And then small batch has some oak, but it's really buried. But it's what I learned, you know, it's like everybody says they want 75-year-old bourbon, but I'll tell you, you do a blind taste test with them, they're not going to pick the old stuff. They're going to pick the either a vintage blend or, you know, 5 to 9 year usually. And I mean, it's all right. There's no absolutes because you could have a 12-year that's aged on the first floor and a 7-year that's aged on a 6th floor in a warehouse that gets lots of sun. Or you could have something like in a basement where, you know, it never gets warmer than 55 degrees. So, I mean, there are no absolutes. It's, you know, there's all these variables. But the one thing I've learned is people don't like age in bourbon as much as they say they do. You know, Scotch is different because aged in a used barrel and there's no temperature swings. It's like summer and winter aren't very far apart, you know, but bourbon's aged in a new barrel in locations where it's 100 degree, you know, Kentucky gets hot and it gets cold, big, huge temperature swings, you know? Same with Indiana. I mean, Indiana is like, they have hot, humid summers and cold winters. And so it's a lot of movement in the wood. And when you're using something like a number 4 char, they can get, especially on a high floor, they can get over oaked pretty easily.
So what is the proof on this straight bourbon?
92.5.
Well, that's nice. And you're saying that's a young whiskey?
Yeah, 4 and 5.
You couldn't prove it by me.
Yeah, thank you.
It's quite mature, and it is. It's an easy drinking whiskey. I think that's all. It's just amazing to me, and that you're able to do it. And you're not the first one that we've chatted with that I don't know if it's out of necessity to get a product out there or not, but I'm tasting some bourbons that are 5, 6, and 7 years old, which are spot on in my opinion. And this is one of them. I think it's great.
Yeah, the goal with that was to just create a superior everyday bourbon at an affordable price point.
Yeah.
So, I mean, in this industry, there's no such thing as MSRP, because as a manufacturer, if we're dictating a retail price, we're influencing a retailer, which is a violation of the 3-tier system. But it should retail around the $30 price range, depending on where you are.
That's a mighty fine whiskey, and
thank you. Yeah, and hopefully with volume and everything, as we move forward, it'll get cheaper. And that was sort of the thing, because people are like, what are you going to do next? Because we had done small batch was in the 50s, uncut unfiltered was a step up. Then there was Desert Jewel. Then there was 10, 11, 12-year barrels. Then the 8-year barrel pitch. And people are like, what are you going to do next? Some super crazy thing. I was like, no, I want to make an affordable whiskey that everybody can buy and drink and not have to worry about it being allocated or, have to be precious about it. I just feel like everything's getting weirder, when people in a attempt to stand out in a saturated market, people are just trying to like do whatever they can, and it's like, I just want to do something that everybody will like and can afford. I mean, there's nothing unpleasant there. It may be like, if you want to spend some time alone contemplating the meaning of life, straight bourbon might not have enough complexity to sit there and spend time with. You're like, oh, this is delicious, but you're like, it's not, picking out flavors, uncut, unfiltered. You can sit there for 2 hours, just like, what is that? What was that? What was that? And but conversely, if you're in a social situation, like I always make the joke, like I would never drink uncut, unfiltered in a social situation, because somebody tried to talk to me, like, hey, shh, I'm trying to figure out if this is coffee or butterscotch, and I'm spending time with my bourbon over here. I need to think about what's going on, and so it's nice to have something that you don't have to think about at all. You just drink it and you're like, oh, yum. You don't have to sit there and go, oh, what are those flavors? What is that? You're just like, delicious. That's nice. You know what I mean?
So was the straight bourbon your first crack out of the box in terms of what you?
No, it was the most recent.
Oh, it was most recent.
Yeah, besides the rare and limited.
So let's talk about the small batch. What did you? Is that the one you mixed the 8 and the 5-year-old?
Yeah, that is the first. That's where it all began.
Yep, that was my first bottle. My first love.
It's still my first love. It gets neglected in the wintertime because it's hard for me to drink uncut, unfiltered outside with a cigar when it's 113 degrees. And I really do like uncut, unfiltered neat. It's sort of ironic because I blend small batch to taste good on the rocks, but I blend uncut to taste its best neat. Now, the thing, it's not like when I see somebody drinking it on a sphere or a cube or on the rocks or whatever, I don't like lose my shit and go, oh my God, I blended that to be enjoyed neat. You're destroying my bourbon. It's like, for me, I blended it so that I enjoy neat. You can do whatever you want. Once you buy it, it's yours. You're not going to hurt my feelings, as long as you like it. But for me, the reason I like it neat is I like that intensity and I like that complexity. And when I drink uncut, that's what I'm in the mood for. And so if I'm not in the mood for that, I'll have small batch on the rocks because it just gets so fruity and so delightful, but it never loses its spicy finish and it never loses its heat. So I actually blend small batch to be a little thin and hot at 100 proof while I try to blend uncut to have no heat on the finish at like 112 to 116, depending on what's going on in there.
So, Aaron, I forgot to ask this earlier. These are all the same mash bills, correct?
Correct. Pretty amazing, huh?
And I'm guessing it's a high rye?
Yeah, 36% rye.
Okay, I kind of had a feeling that was where it was.
And they all have a taste completely different,
Well, it is. And, we've had a lot of MGP from various producers. And
right.
I think MGP, personally, I think they do a phenomenal job at not only the amount they produce, but the quality consistently.
Yeah.
But I will say, John and I were talking about this earlier on the porch. So many products that are MGP, we can pick out things that are so, consistent across the board. We say, oh, we get some grain up front here. That's definitely an MGP. These are so unique and different from any other product that I've tasted. I don't, I know they come from MGP, but you wouldn't convince me of that if I didn't hear it from you, because I don't get MGP out of it.
Yeah, I mean, it's a big. I mean, that's a thing, I know a lot of people were buying the palletized MGP stuff that has a very significant flavor. I'm sorry, not significant. Specific flavor profile. I try to stay away from those. I try to everything I contract to still is 100% racked on its side in a rack in a traditional rick house style. The MGP built warehouses do not have floors and racks. Everything's palletized, and that's what most people are using. Like when you see their videos, they're top filled. I have multiple problems with those barrels. One is probably completely irrational, and I just think they're abominations. That's not what a barrel's supposed to look like. It's supposed to have a bung on its side. It's not supposed to be top filled. They're supposed to rest on their side. So whether or not there's any legitimacy to that or not, who knows? It could just be emotional and irrational and foolish. But I will tell you, the things that are is the new warehouses are not the same as the Seagram's warehouses. The Seagram's warehouses are engineering marvels that seal in humidity and the proof gallon loss. So so MGP is very humid. The Seagram's warehouses. So you may have huge volume, but the proof goes down. So your volume loss is like far below what you would expect to see of the age, but because your proof has gone down so much, your proof gallon loss is like a little better than what you'd expect to see. And but the nice thing about having a proof gallon loss where it's alcohol dissipating and not volume is in my opinion, it ages better. Because the higher the proof, the more tannins, the more the alcohol is going to eat away at the wood. And the lower the proof, the less that's going to happen. And so you can have a 10-year or a 12-year where it's not over oaked and you still have a balance, especially if you don't rotate barrels, especially if you just let them sit where they got put down on day one. You're never disturbing the char. You're never breaking up all that char, have it floating in the juice. And so the new warehouses are metal warehouses. And the proof gallon loss is ridiculous. It's like we have this. Now, if you're doing a 4-year bourbon, it's probably great because you're getting an accelerated aging process because it's getting very hot in there and a lot of wood movement. And so if you're doing a 4-year, it's probably going to. But the barrels I bought when we did this big buy and it was all or nothing. I had to get the palletized ones. They're 6-year. And the proof gallon loss is like 50%. Which is what you would expect to see in 11 years, not 6 years. The other reason I don't like them They're not as complex. I don't know. I think it's something about like the surface area, right? If you have a barrel on its side and the volume's going down over time, you have this massive surface area where these chemical reactions can happen. If it's on a barrel head, your surface area is much smaller. And then also you can't predict. I never know where in the stack it's going to be. So one time I could pull 8 barrels and they're the first 2 in the stack. And the next time I pull 8 barrels and they're off the top of the next stack. So I don't know. I know what, I mean, every cooperage is different, but I kind of have an idea now what like a 4th floor in warehouse G is going to age like. I know what a 5th floor warehouse C is going to age like. You know what I mean? It's like I can predict it. I mean, I know what these basement barrels are going to be like. I know what 2nd floor barrels are going to be like. There's always variations, but I know that I'm not going to pull a 2nd floor barrel and it's going to have like massive proof gallon loss and be over oaked. I know it's going to be a little young for its age and it's going to have a lot of fruit, So yeah. And then
are you able to say I want my barrels off of this floor and these warehouses? Are you able to specify?
Oh yeah, absolutely. Yeah. So it's all my inventory. I'm not, when I do go and buy aged juice, which we hadn't been doing until recently, we just had a couple holes in inventory, but we bought so much at one time that it was spread out all over. But those are now my inventory. So when I look at my inventory and I do a barrel pull, I tell them which lots I want from which locations. And now we're doing so much volume, I have to plan the vintage blend out in my head before the truck, because basically, that truck of 88 to 90 barrels has got to be what I think, that's our month's worth of uncut runs or small batch or whatever. And so, it's kind of frustrating because everything's happening so fast now that I'm not pulling samples or anything like that. Just the barrels come and we do it. And sometimes it doesn't work out the way I think it's going to be. And so let's say we're doing small batch I want it to be fruity and spicy. Well, that's going to come from 4 and 5 year. It ain't going to come from 7 and 9 year, but all of a sudden, these 4 years are off the 6th floor in this warehouse that gets sun. And so they're a little oaky and they don't have fruit. And now I got to get the fruit out of these 6 years. And I'd only planned on doing some 6 year, but now it's like heavy on 6 year and low on 4 year. And it's like, shit, now we got to get more barrels. But, it's cool. But, and that's the thing too, because even the straight, it may be only 4 and 5 year, but it's at least 5 tanks, 5 different tanks of 4 year off the floor, off different floors in different warehouses, and 5 year off of different floors in different warehouses. So it's still, even though it's only 2 vintages, it's still pretty complex.
It sounds like for a guy that was running a couple of bars and drinking vodka, you've developed a pretty damn good palate yourself in terms of tasting the fruits and the things that you want to taste in your bourbon.
I had to develop the ability to know what I liked.
Yeah.
But just fortunately, I had a God-given palate where when I said, I like this, I'm going to keep blending it until it only has things that I like and doesn't have anything I don't like. Other people went, wow. This is really good. I'm like, thanks. And then down the road, people are like, how, the joke that I always tell everybody is when I did the first year of Uncut Unfiltered, 2017, the head of craft spirits for my distributor was like, how is it? I'm like, it's good. He's like, oh, well, you're going to have to be a little more descriptive than that. When somebody asks, how is it? I'm like, it's really fucking good. And he's like,
that's great.
He's like,
we had a discussion on the porch today, and sometimes when we're picking barrels, and we take guys along with us that are novices, and it's not amazing anymore that they enjoy the taste of good bourbon as much as those of us that think we're full of shit and know all these things. But it really is all about just good tasting bourbon. And
yes.
You get down
to it. Especially when you're doing a barrel pick or something like that and you're all there together, you can make just a decision like, I like this one better. Now, it may vary because there might be a guy who really likes oak or isn't tannin sensitive. And so something that's, or likes, smooth stuff. It's like, I mean, I think I was on a Facebook group when they were talking about the difference, like between one brand and my brand. And I said, well, that brand's like 10% rye. That they're going to be much more linear and one-dimensional flavor profile, and it's going to be like smooth. And the guy's like, oh my God, I can't believe you're talking shit about this brand. I'm like, that's real. If you don't only have 10% small grains, where is your complexity going to come from? It's not going to come from the corn, and everybody's using the same oak. So that's where it comes from. And it's not a dig. That's what some people like. Some people don't. I mean, the whole reason Weller exists is because, Pappy Van Winkle didn't like rye, and he felt low rye was too linear, and he wanted complexity, but he didn't want rye spice. So he made it a wheated bourbon. So he would have complexity, but it would be softer and gentler, and that, so everybody likes, so you can't get in a situation where it's like saying what you like best is like saying what's the best flavor of ice cream. But if you're all trying something together, you don't have to be like, oh, I taste, nutmeg and stone fruit and sit there for 20 minutes trying to figure out what you taste because you're all drinking it together. It's like you'd say, I like this one the best. Me too. I don't like this one the best. All right, well, let's keep going. You know what I mean? But yeah, you don't have to pick out flavors to know if you like something or not.
Sometimes I feel like that's something, bourbon aficionados do too much is they try to get real fancy with it. And, oh, I bet you I can describe this in 10 different ways and I can use all these different fancy words and everyone's going to think I'm really impressive. It's like, you know what? Some of the best reviews I've ever given were just like, this is really fucking good whiskey.
I mean, yeah,
I don't need to say
like,
any
especially
more
small
than that.
batch. I don't really do small batch. I have a flavor philosophy behind it. I want it to be fruit forward, rye spice, buried oak with some heat, and that's usually how it tastes. Uncut is always different. So sometimes it'll be like, wow, this one's got a really big in your face finish, which is what I generally like with uncut unfiltered. And sometimes I'm like, well, let's see what happens if I do this. I'm like, oh, this one's a little gentler, a little softer. It's still complex, but not like the flavor journey. Because sometimes uncut, the flavor journey, it's like first there's earth, and then there's black pepper, and then there's black tea, and then the sweet stuff comes in, and then there's like the cinnamon, So in those cases, I'll try to let people know. But it's to tell people who can't. You're trying to describe a sensory experience that someone else can't because they're reading. It's like if they're there drinking it, you don't have to be like, hey, do you taste that? Are you getting some of that black tea? You're like, well, I don't know, but maybe, sure. It's like they're drinking it too. You don't have to describe it to them because they're having the same experience as you.
So is the uncut, unfiltered also a blend?
Oh yeah, way more complex than small batch. Whatever I have on hand, I'll throw at it. There's sometimes it's 10 different vintages, floors, and warehouses.
So it's not always the same. You might pick up a bottle today that may be different from the other. One we are drinking right now, Luke, in my opinion, is just dynamite. I mean, it's really good.
Which does it have a batch sticker or is it pre-batch?
Yeah, so this is batch number 70.
Oh,
this is a later
batch. That one's fucking amazing. Oh my God. Yeah.
Really good whiskey.
That's like a kitchen sink batch. We had all these tanks that just had a little bit left in them. And I did a video on it on Instagram, but yeah, that one is that's something special. I love that. I love that batch.
It is. No, it's like I said, we've been sitting here drinking. John and I have been sitting here drinking for over an hour now.
By the way, that stuff's like what? It's like 100. What's the ABV on that one? 57.
117. Yeah, or 58.46 ABV.
Oh, 58.4. Yeah, it doesn't drink it though, does it?
No, they never do, in my opinion. And I've had.
Oh man, this is absolute dessert. I mean, I would not put this on anything. I wouldn't put it on.
Yeah.
No.
No. Now, if you had like back 67, 68, or 69, they're going to finish a little bigger. They are like, which I like, you know, I like them all. People are always like, oh, do you have a favorite? I'm like, I don't really have a favorite because they're all so different. And then also, you know, they change in the bottle, whether you open it or not. You don't have to open the bottle for it to change in the bottle. It's not oxygen. It's just it's settle, you know, everything marrying, and you have a chemical reaction when you combine all these proofs. Even though you're not adding water, all the vintages and floors have different proofs. It still creates a chemical reaction, and it still takes some time to settle down. And since our demand is so high and our space is so limited, I mean, you'll see people in like California will get something that we bottled that day before, you know, we'll be bottling in the morning and the truck shows up in the afternoon because we always have to get stuff out the door. And so like I'll go back and try batches that were a little too much or something like that. And, you know, a few months later, it's all settled in and I like it better than I remembered. And, but that happens, you know, all the time. Like I'll have, you know, I keep archive bottles and I'll be working on a vintage blend. I'm like, man, I just can't get this as good as that other one. And I go try the other one. I'm like, oh, this doesn't taste how I remember it. This new one's actually better, you know, or something like that. So your memory fails you, you know. But
so when you started, did you stay in the bar business? Do you still have the bars?
I only have one left. I sold most of them to focus on this.
And you started bringing this in. Would you put it in your bars? Is that where you were first getting your feedback from the public?
No, Total Wine. Matt Lilly. Matt Lilly was the buyer for Total Wine in Nevada and one store in Northern California, and he tried it. And so coming from the bar business, you know, the model for most suppliers is get into the bars, get on cocktail menus. And I'm like, coming from the bar business, and I'm like, what? Why? I know what happens. You make a deal. We as bar owners take advantage of it, and then the deal's over and we find the next one. I was like, if you think any of these people between 21 and 25 who are coming in here 4 or 5 nights a week are like gonna buy something in a liquor store because they tried it in the bar, maybe, you know, Fireball or a flavored rum or something, but not a premium bourbon. I mean, with premium bourbons we only have on the shelves, you know, mainly so it looks good. Like we'll have a bottle a whole year, you know. It was a little different in Las Vegas because we're a couple blocks away from the courthouses, so we'd get attorneys and things like that coming in for happy hour. And so I wanted to focus on liquor stores, and we went to Total Wine, and Matt Lilly tried small batch, and he was like, I want like 30 cases of this. And I was like, yeah, man, liquor stores are where it's at. And then I was in more control because I could go to a liquor store and do tastings, and I would sell the place out in a day. Yeah, whatever they had, it was gone. But I would be there for 3 hours and I would sell it all. And so, you know, and all the people that worked at the store appreciated it. And it was cool because it was instant feedback because things were hard. it was very slow process. But because of all the people that I came in contact with, regular consumers, you know, they were like, this is really good. You have something special here. I just, you know, like kept me going. And same with the Instagram and the bourbon community and everything. It's like anything bad that's happened, everyone's been so supportive that it always gets turned around and turns into like one of the best things that's ever happened, you know? And so Matt Lilly, man, he took a chance. He did barrel picks for the first time when I think in 1 year he did like 14. When Desert Jewel first came out, he bought 350 cases. You know,
wow,
yeah. I still tell he's at a different store now. I tell him, man, I was like, anytime he asks me for something, like whatever you need, buddy, I always got you.
Absolutely. I got a feeling that your personality and doing these tastings and your social media, I've got a feeling that your personality has gone a long ways toward getting this in some people's hands as
I
well.
believe so. I mean, it is polarizing. There are people that don't like me, but
I can relate to that.
I mean, there's no in between. The people either like, yeah, man, that guy's awesome, or they're like, man, fuck that motherfucker. He's who's he think
Yeah,
he is?
exactly.
But there's no like, oh, I don't know, he's okay, whatever,
Well, I can tell you, Aaron, when I was setting this up and I put a post out a couple days ago and I said, threw up some pictures of the bottles and said, get ready to chat with Aaron. I got a bunch of messages and people were just like, yeah, Aaron's the man. That guy's fucking awesome. We love Aaron. I didn't get any, oh, he's a shitty guy message at all.
I've only had a few, but I know the source, and it was all very dismissive. But yeah, I mean, that's the thing. It's like, doing these podcasts, or even like when I'll do, during the height of COVID, I would do Zooms with bourbon groups and things like that. And some of them were like, oh man, I can't believe you're doing this with us. We're like nobody. I'm like, that's not real. I was like, first of all, I'm just a regular guy who, I still don't perceive myself. And I think you have to stay humble or you get punished. Because when I first got in the bar business and they were popular, I thought I was the shit. And God was like, no, you're not. Here, let me show you. Let me show you how fast you can change real quick. And, and so I appreciate everyone. And like I said, all those hard times doing the tastings and everything, everybody being supportive is what made it easy. And everybody on Instagram is 99.9% are great. It's really cool. It's the bourbon community is amazing, especially coming from something like the bar business where it's like, I don't want to. Las Vegas was different because we were sort of the first bar that we're going to make sure locals have a good experience. So there was a lot of appreciation, and that was really nice. But I've also had experiences where it's like, oh man, please. Yeah, but here it's like you're dealing with for the most part, adults, and even the young guys are like bourbon drinkers, and so it's like their hobby, and so it's all cool, everybody's cool.
Well,
everybody's positive for the most part, and like enthusiastic. And
well, I think, with your products and your brand, there's a lot to be positive and enthusiastic about.
Oh, thank you.
That's the reality. It's just, I get excited about all these products when I see them because they're good. They're fair priced.
That's the goal, man. Fair, keep it all fairly priced. Like even when retailers gouge, it's not coming from me. We try to keep everything sorry, but yeah, fair price. That's the goal. As Jonathan.
So how do you step it up from here? You're now in about 11 states, you say, and when you were walking in to begin with, you're saying, well, how do we take this national? So,
well, the thing is, we're doing more in these 11. Well, we are in some special order states, so I think it's growing. It's probably about like 16 now, because we are in Virginia now, special order, Oregon special order, Idaho special order, North Carolina, and another one. Yeah, I mean, look, even Virginia, when we got on the Virginia ABC special order list, it crashed the site for people trying to order. Yeah.
So Virginia it's a state controlled state.
Yeah.
So they have a special order where it's on a website somewhere, and if you want it, you can order it. They'll buy it from you.
Yeah.
I didn't know that.
Yeah. So the special order, we can keep up with the demand. Everything's about whether or not we can keep up with the demand. Now, when we move into the new space, the land, we bought 4 acres over in a much nicer part of town than we are now. And originally we bought it as raw land because we were told both buildings had to be demolished, but only one had to be, and the other salvageable. And the reason that's important is doing tenant improvements is significantly faster than developing new land. And so we should be in there hopefully November, December. We'll have a fully automated bottling line with the ability to bottle more than we would ever be able to with the amount of juice we have access to.
So you bring the juice to Vegas, and
Yep.
that's where you bottle it and ship it from.
And blend it. Yeah. Everything. Yeah. I think that's the important thing because I'm figuring out the blends there. So let's take uncut, for example. So
Let's do.
So we're doing multiple batches in a row, right? I like, even though we're doing more volume, and it would probably make sense to have big giant tanks and do one big giant tank at once. I still like doing it on a small, 2,500 pound, 350 gallon level because the quality control is there. And every time we do a barrel dump, so every vintage and floor goes into its own tank. So I just figured out a vintage blend for uncut. So I have 7 samples from the 7 different tanks, which are 7 different floors in vintage. Usually it's more. We're kind of we did, because of the red, white, and blue straight bottles. We did so many runs to try to make sure that wasn't, even though it's a limited bottle, to make sure that we just got a ton of that shit out in June, so everybody that wants it could get it. I wanted it to flood the market with it, so that nobody's, I sold it for the same price I sell normal straight for, and I want that. And I chose it. I did it in straight, so it's not collectible. It's just entry level bourbon, something fun to have a 4th of July at a barbecue or whatever. Go to your friend's house, not something like my special coveted bottle of straight bourbon that I'm going to give to my grandkids or some shit. You know what I mean? It's like, and hopefully it doesn't show up on secondary, even though gift boxes show up on secondary, even though you can still buy them off our website for $4. So, who knows? And, but
the other thing that amazes me, I'm sorry, Luke, for continuing to just jump in here, but the other thing that amazes me, and one, I don't know if what you're doing is unique, but it's unique to me that you're bringing these in and vatting them according to where they were stored and everything before you keep your blending. So you're keeping everything separate before you even get to the process. I've never heard of that. I think that may be unique. But the other thing that blows my mind, you talk about those old Seagram warehouses, is I can't recall a damn thing that Seagram made out of those warehouses
that was any good.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah. Well,
but now
thing,
today,
right?
100 years later, you're getting good whiskey out of those same warehouses.
Well, because they weren't putting it in good stuff. It's like, they're the 36% rye is the heart of Crown Royal, and so that's not very good. I think 21% rye. I don't know where the 21% rye bourbon went, but I know that they developed that 95% rye as a blender for Seagram 7 when they went from using, and the 21% might have always been light whiskey. It might never have been a bourbon.
Yeah.
It might have always gone in the used barrels in the past. But don't quote me on that.
Jim Rutledge was there for the longest time, but then he left there and decided to start making real bourbon somewhere.
But yeah, so the 95% rye was made as a blender for Seagram 7 when they switched from using light whiskey to neutral grain spirit. And so the 95%, if you only put like a little bit of that in, it gives all that neutral grain spirit flavor. So yeah, so they were doing all these things, but they just weren't putting them in anything that in the modern era had a good reputation. So yeah, I think the other reason why MGP got a bad rap in the beginning was because nobody knew what the Seagram's plant was. Obviously people who live in Indiana probably did, but when MGP bought Seagram's plant, and everybody Googled MGP. They were like, "Oh, what do they know? They just make food grade protein and all this other stuff." I don't think they fully understood, and they did distill. They made neutral grain spirit for Purell, and all this other stuff, and that's why it made sense for them because they own distilling plants where they make NGS all over the country. But I don't think anybody got it. They didn't fully understand what was going on. That no, this wasn't like MGP opened up a plant in Indiana. They bought an existing facility that has a tremendous history.
I think they brought some people in, maybe about or just before the time you made your first trip out there and was looking at that vast expanse of distilleries and holding tanks and everything else. I think they brought some people in that had an appreciation for making things a lot better and a lot different than they did before. I think they were mass producing before, frankly.
Well, I mean, you talk about mass producing. It's not that big. It's only 20 acres. I mean, their warehouses are letters of the alphabet. It doesn't even get to the Z. I mean, Jim Beam's got 125 rack houses. I mean, it's massive. And that's the funny thing is MGP isn't that, I mean, for somebody like me who's got a 3,900 square foot space, yeah, it's huge. it's massive, but I think on the grand scheme of things, it's really, it's not like the size of Jack Daniels or the Jim Beam. I even Bardstown now is getting huge, I mean, they're building rack houses like crazy. So when you look at they're on 20 acres. I don't know how big some of these other facilities are, but I think, they've only got they don't have a lot of warehouses.
Well, they definitely know what they're doing. And I mean, we see it every day. If you know how to work with it, you know what to do with it. It is absolutely of the finest quality. There's no doubt.
Yeah, I agree, and I think that's one of the things. Our relationship with them has always been positive. We never denied that. We were always like, yeah, we use MGP. Yeah, why wouldn't we? It's amazing, And I feel fortunate, and that I have a relationship I do. And honestly, now at this point, I mean, to scale the way we have, as fast as we have, if we were building, there's no way. I mean. To scale is hey, Barry, my sales rep. Let's start doing this many barrels a month. Okay, cool. It's and the cost is. I mean, that's why everything's so affordable. Because we're contract distilling. There's very little stuff that we've paid a premium for that was aged. And so I think that's why we're at an advantage, and we've been doing it for so long that it's like you look at my straight bourbon, it's $30. Other guys that are doing 4 or 5 year MGP stuff, 36% rye mash bill is like $59, $60. Because they're buying aged juice and they're paying a premium
or more. Yeah.
Yeah, more. I've seen
like
it more.
More.
Too,
yeah. Well, I mean, but anyone can take a barrel and put it in a bottle. Blending it, making it something special, making what you've made these products, not anyone can do. That's what a lot of people seem to not grasp at first, is that I know there was that period, maybe 10 years ago, maybe not even 10 years ago, where people were like, oh, sourcing, what is that? They're a bunch of sellouts. They're not even whiskey. Who are these people? And I'm hearing that. That is.
Yeah, I still see it occasionally. Like you're not in Las Vegas, and like what? Yeah, I'm kind of in Las Vegas. Don't tell all the people I employ, and everything happens here. It's like,
people are so misguided with that belief that if you aren't distilling it at your physical location, that you don't know what you're doing, or you aren't making real whiskey. That's such a misguided and misplaced belief, in my opinion.
Yeah, I mean, it's like, I don't know what I'd be doing differently if we were doing it on location. I mean, I wouldn't be the guy looking at the computer printouts. I'd hire someone to do that. And I'd be like, okay, let's be strategic and figure out what we need to lay down. All right, we're going to lay down this much. I'd be doing everything. You know what I mean? It's like, okay, I'd be paying attention to how stuff tastes on different floors and different warehouses. It just would be here, and like, who cares? I don't care. I mean, that's the thing. It's like, talking about the size of MGP or Jim Beam. It's like, we're never going to be Sazerac Buffalo Trace. We're never going to be Beam Centauri. We're never going to be Diageo. It's like, if you have a problem that I contract to still with MGP, that's fine. Don't buy my stuff. There's going to be somebody, it'll be okay. We'll be all right. If it's people that are buying it because of how it tastes, is enough.
Well, that's all that matters.
Yeah, but I think that in a way you are the Sazerac and folks like that, because I mean, if you look at what they're doing, let's just take Buffalo Trace. Is every product they got is well, they don't have that. They've got a couple of mash bills. Every product they have is based on
two bourbon mash bills,
and there you go. So you've got their whole game plan for products is based on floors and warehouses and where they pull it from, and you're doing the same damn thing. And I don't think I've heard of anybody doing that.
I had that conversation with someone else, and I was like, "Look, I'm you have to understand that when I was talking to them, like, you have to understand the spirit of what I'm saying. I'm not saying, oh, Buffalo Trace only has two mash bills. Shame on them. I'm saying they only need it because they can create these flavor profiles through because they have all these different warehouses and floors and things like that, and everything's going to taste different, and they know how to blend each one. So it's like, if you try one oh my god, the E.H. Taylor doesn't taste exactly the same as the other one. They taste different, uniquely different. And then the person was like, well, I mean, they have Harlan Wheatley, and I was like, okay, so what? So I can't do that, Yeah, so it's like, I don't have the ability to blend stuff to make it taste different. I mean,
no, I think that's what makes you different, and I think that's what's. I think that your personality and all of that together is just a beautiful blend in itself in terms of business model, and I really salute you on.
Thank you.
Hook or through crook, decide I'm going to vat this stuff based on where it came from and how old it was, and then working with it like that. I mean, that's not a damn bit different than those guys are doing in those, mega model lease or whatever the hell they are. And they're good, and I love their bourbon, but I'm loving your bourbon for the very same reason that you've. I think you stumbled onto. I don't know if you stumbled on it. That's not fair. Although you did come out. But you did come out of vodka in a bar back, bro.
Well, look, I mean, it did, right? Yeah, I mean, if it wasn't for those tanks, I mean, who knows what? It's such a hard thing to decide, right? Because the original goal was to distill ourselves. That didn't happen, and it happened at the same time that tanks didn't get approved. So it's like, you never know what would have happened or whatever. But yeah, I mean, it's just this shit happens. You just gotta, and it all worked out for the best. And it's a lot of fun, Thank you. Sunday wasn't fun. Sunday was not fun. I was having a hard time with Uncut Unfiltered. That wasn't a fun day. But when I got it, it was fun again. So it was very, like all things in life, it was fleeting, all the bad shit's fleeting, and then it was good again. So it was cool.
So are you having fun now?
Oh yeah, man, it's awesome. I mean, I love talking to you guys, and now it's at a point where I have time to do stuff like this. I got a great staff. Everybody's kicking ass. I come in, the samples are laid out for me. I figure out a blend and tell the warehouse manager how to batch it. And then I'll either have some stuff to do, or I go home and come back the next day and try all the batches and make sure they taste the way I wanted them to taste, and I think that's important. Like doing everything on location and having that sort of degree of quality control and making sure there's no variations, because I've had barrels change. They change from the time I pull samples from MGP to the time I get them. It's a long truck ride over elevation. I think it has changes a little bit. I mean, when stuff sits out here, I try to let the older barrels sit out here for a few months. I usually pull more than I need of those and let them sit, because I do believe that they change. The young stuff, I don't think it is favorable to have them sit. I don't know if it. I have a theory that the older they are, the more the alcohol sort of seals the wood, and so you don't get as much evaporation, because the old stuff does not evaporate like the younger stuff. The old stuff will actually lose some oak and gain some complexity sitting here, while the young stuff just kind of gets oaky. Doesn't really change favorably.
Well, Jimmy Russell has always said he felt like the sweet spot was 6 or 7 years old.
Yeah,
and I agree with that personally, but that's just me.
I would say if you were to take it as a whole, yes. There's always exceptions, and there's always
exactly.
Like for the, if you were to take an average, I would say that would be absolutely correct.
Well, great minds think alike. What can I say? We know we gotta let you go here. We know we've taken up a lot of your time, and we need you to get back to blending more of this whiskey for us.
I'm done for the day. That's why I was late. I was over there. Got home late.
Well, we appreciate everything you're doing. I mean, this is really such a phenomenal whiskey, and the fact that
thank you. I appreciate it.
We get to try it, not only try it, but try it with you is, such a pleasure for us. And we just, we can't wait to see what you do next. We're excited.
No, thank you. I can tell you what I'm doing next. Well, we're definitely doing a rye, and I'd like to do sort of the straight equivalent of uncut unfiltered. An uncut unfiltered that's doesn't really have any old juice in it. It is like a lower price point.
Wow, that would be amazing.
Because it's funny that the way that evolved is I did a straight blend and I tried it before I proofed it down, and I was like, holy shit, this is amazing. I was like, there's no oak, it's so fruity and spicy, and there's no grain, and it's like really intense, and I liked it, but not harsh, like no burn going down. And I was like, maybe I'll do this as like a rare and limited. And then I was like, nope, there will be no such thing as an affordable rare and limited. Any idea I had, I just saw a bottle, the only 5-year on secondary for I don't know, like $2,000 or something. Like, that was supposed to retail for $50-something. That was supposed to be this, hey guys, here's this really cool, affordable barrel. Like, it's fun. Everybody can afford this one. I know it's very limited, but it's like kind of a joke on the name. Like, hey, here you go. It's a 5-year. I mean, yeah, it was 1 out of 300 barrels that I thought actually tasted good on its own, but I priced it as a 5-year. I didn't price it as some exotic fucking thing. It was supposed to be like, oh, cool, a rare and limited. It's like $55. And now $2,000 on secondary. So no, there'll never be something where I think it's going to be affordable or lower priced, rare and limited. So I was like, fuck it, I'll just make it a new expression. I just don't know what to call it yet. But yeah, I'd like to. No, nothing can really happen until we get in the new space, because we're maxed out. We can't keep up with what we're doing as it is. And then do a rye. We're about to do a rye, and then we had to buy these 1,400 barrels from MGP, and that kind of took away a lot of money. And then we bought the land and everything, so it's been more about keeping Smokewagon going and making sure we have enough inventory and all these things. And then now, and then there's a lot more rye out there than there is 36% rye bourbon.
Yeah. Well, so that's exciting, and we'll definitely keep an eye out for it. And as soon as they're out, we'll have you back on and let you tell us all about it.
Right on.
All right, Aaron. Well, thank you again for everything. We appreciate you. We appreciate everyone out there working with you. You're doing an absolutely amazing job with everything. And
thank you. I appreciate it.
Thank you for giving us this amazing whiskey to drink every day.
My pleasure, man. I mean, it's cool. It's a creative process, and to have guys like you say, things accolades, it's very rewarding. It's a very rewarding experience, and I appreciate it.
Well,
I feel lucky to be doing what I'm doing.
Well, you are killing it. So keep up the great work, and we'll hopefully be chatting with you soon.
Right on.
All right, take care, brother. Hey everyone, thanks again for tuning in to the Capital City Bourbon Show. We have more great episodes planned for you in the future, so come back and join us on the porch. Cheers, y'all.